The United States entered a new political crisis overnight as the federal government officially shut down at midnight, marking the first such shutdown in almost 7 years. The dramatic turn came after Democrats and Republicans failed to reach an agreement on a funding bill to keep the government operating through November. Good morning from Washington. The mood here is tense. As reporters gathered at the Capitol, the shutdown became official at 12 a.m., a moment that underscored weeks of failed negotiations and partisanship that many Americans have come to expect from Washington's divided leadership. The Senate had been working late into the night on competing bills to avoid this scenario. Republicans pushed for what they described as a 7-week clean continuing resolution, a temporary funding bill aimed at buying time for further talks. However, the proposal fell short of the 60 votes needed to pass. The final tally was 55 to 45, a setback that signaled the depth of the divide. In a surprise move, 3 Democratic senators, John Fetterman, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Angus King, broke with their party to vote with Republicans in favor of the temporary funding plan. Their defection highlighted growing unease within the Democratic ranks about the political and economic cost of a prolonged shutdown. Yet even within the Republican Party, unity was not complete. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul voted against his own colleague's bill, citing concerns about spending levels and the nature of the continuing resolution. Addressing reporters after the failed vote, Senate Republican leader John Thune made an appeal for bipartisan cooperation, saying, "All it takes is a couple of Democrats to join Republicans to pass the clean, nonpartisan funding bill that is in front of us. I really hope that some of us will join us to reopen the government, resume bipartisan appropriations work, and get back to the business of the American people." Republican leaders suggested that more Democrats were quietly unhappy with the shutdown's impact and might eventually join them to bring an end to the standoff. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer sharply criticized the Republican-drafted bill, saying it had been pushed through without any input from the Democratic side. Schumer told reporters their bill, they call it clean. We call it totally partisan. There was no input from Democrats. Not a single line in their bill had input from Democrats. They never consulted us. Johnson did not consult Hakeem Jeffries. The bottom line is we had a partisan bill. In a bid to break the impasse, Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries visited the White House on Monday to meet with President Trump. However, those talks ended without a breakthrough. President Trump warned that the deadlock could have lasting consequences for federal employees and the broader economy. According to officials, the president has cautioned that a lot of federal workers could permanently lose their jobs if an agreement is not reached soon. For now, the shutdown has forced approximately 550,000 federal workers to go on furlough, leaving agencies short-staffed and raising concerns about public services. The Senate is expected to reconvene later today to continue negotiations, but hopes for a swift resolution appear slim. In the meantime, the uncertainty is already affecting millions of households. Financial analyst Ashley Davis spoke on the issue, noting federal employees will most likely get paid on October 5th for the last 2 weeks of September, but they're not going to get a paycheck on October 20th for the 2 weeks of October work. Davis sought to calm fears over the shutdown's impact on essential programs, adding they will get paid afterwards. That's important once the shutdown is over. I don't like this at all. These are political messages more than anything. One major thing our viewers need to know is entitlement programs will still be paid. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, TSA will still work, FEMA will still work. There's going to be a lot of fear-mongering, but it's important everyone knows that's going to be okay. Beyond the domestic impact, some federal offices that operate internationally are also adjusting. At the New York Economic Club, U.S. Ambassador Jameson Greer downplayed fears of a full-scale operational freeze, saying, "I have about 250 people around me and working to be operating. Regardless of the shutdown, we are there in the trade representative's office. Operations go on." For seasoned political observers, the shutdown follows a familiar pattern. Since 1975, the United States has experienced 21 federal government shutdowns, often triggered by disputes over budgets and policy priorities. In each case, the blame game has been swift, with Republicans pointing fingers at Democrats and Democrats accusing Republicans of hostage-taking. Critics say the cycle reflects a deeper dysfunction in American politics, one where brinkmanship has become routine. This time, some Republicans accused Schumer of orchestrating the shutdown for political reasons. According to their view, the Senate Minority Leader hesitated to compromise because of fears of backlash from his party's progressive wing, including potential challenges from figures such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Amid the partisan finger-pointing, Senator John Fetterman stood out as one of the few Democrats to vote in favor of keeping the government open. In an interview, he explained his reasoning in unequivocal terms. "It is always, always wrong to shut our government down. That is a core responsibility. I am always going to vote against those things. If it is the Republican side, or now that it is our side, especially with the kind of chaos we are facing. Now there is a Category 5 storm that might hit our nation too. If you're willing to shut us down, I was the only Democrat voting against that. Now, the CR was the same CR from the Biden administration as well." Fetterman added a broader point about democratic governance. "I'm a big believer. If you want to change the policies, you need to win elections. That is really the way democracy works." The funding fight also reignited debates over federal subsidies and tax credits. Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Carolina proposed a plan that would extend certain subsidies for 1 year and then phase them down over another year to return tax credits to pre-COVID levels. Some conservatives pushed back on this approach, arguing it contradicted calls for reducing spending. One critic noted, "You cannot say we want to get back to pre-COVID spending and then say we want the subsidies back in there." Davis, the financial analyst, suggested that these issues would likely be resolved later in the year rather than during the current standoff. She commented, "Those subsidies will be worked out. That's going to happen probably in the year-end package." "It won't happen now. It's too difficult. Unfortunately, it doesn't need to happen this minute," which is what Republicans are saying. There are going to be a lot of Republicans that will never agree with the subsidies. They are tied to Obamacare and are difficult, but we're definitely not going to go back to what they're asking for. As the shutdown stretches into its first full day, the focus remains on its immediate human and economic costs. Hundreds of thousands of government employees face lost income, families brace for financial strain, and markets are watching closely for signs of prolonged instability. Yet for all the urgency, history suggests that shutdowns, however disruptive, tend to end with compromises that neither side finds fully satisfactory. This recognition has fueled frustration among voters who see the repeated crises as evidence of a broken political system. In Washington, lawmakers face pressure not just from their constituents, but also from businesses, economists, and international allies who worry that America's political dysfunction is undermining its credibility. As one veteran observer remarked, shutdowns have almost become a way of doing business in Washington, an indictment of the country's political culture rather than a testament to effective governance. For now, the country waits. Negotiations are set to resume, but with no clear path to an agreement, the shutdown threatens to deepen, testing not only the resilience of federal workers, but also the patience of the American public. The coming days will be critical in determining whether bipartisan talks can bridge the divide or if the shutdown becomes another drawn-out chapter in Washington's cycle of gridlock.